Good afternoon. Today I want to talk to you about the power of your beliefs. So, back in the 1970s, there was an experiment run by Dr. Ellen Langer, and you may have seen that I interviewed her a while back. It's a really popular podcast. Please check it out if you haven't. What I want to speak to is an experiment that she called counterclockwise, and she wrote about it in her book, Counterclockwise Mindful Health and the Power of Possibility. And I do want to read this book, but I haven't yet. But there is a summary that I have, but I really wanted to talk to you about. So, one of the key highlights of this book is the counterclockwise study, right? So, in the study conducted in the 1970s, Langer took a group of elderly men on a retreat. It was a converted monastery in New Hampshire, and where they were surrounded by cues from 2 decades earlier, so the 1950s. Now, the environment was designed to reflect the world that it was when they were younger, 20 years earlier. That included the news, the music, and discussions related to that era. And the men were instructed to live as if they were their younger selves. And what's interesting when you hear Dr. Langer speak about when she actually drove these men and dropped them off, she actually picked them up and drove them by herself. I think there were 7 or 8 of them. And she mentioned in an interview previous to the one I did with her that she told these guys all this luggage, I ain't going to do it. I can't do it. You're going to need to move in as if you were already younger. So she set the tone early on that they were going to have to act and move at a younger age. And so, remarkably, after a week, these men showed signs of physiologic rejuvenation. Okay. They demonstrated improvements in physical strength, posture, perception, cognition, and even eyesight. Their eyesight got better. Langer's conclusion was that their mental perception, belief, of aging and health significantly impacted their physical state. So essentially, if we think of ourselves as old and infirm, we're more likely to manifest the symptoms that align with our mindset. So it really delves into how a shift in our mental perspective can lead to better health outcomes in the long run. And I wanted to share a little bit different idea about this is understanding how perception can be false. So many times that we believe that our experience is absolute truth. And that's when we run into conflict or have some type of friction with others that don't believe or see things that we do, because someone who is having a different experience, has a different belief, challenges our own experience or our reality. We as humans, we like that security of our beliefs. That means that what we're seeing in the world makes sense to us, right? We need to always have that sense that we are in control. But the one thing that we should accept, number one, is that the only thing we can count on is change. Everything changes. You change from the morning to the evening. You're a different person. Your biology is different. Your mental state might be different. So everything changes. So the sooner we embrace that the one thing we can count on is change, well, life just gets a little easier. But I wanted to share another story, which you may have heard of, right? So it's about 5 blind men who had never come across an elephant before, right? They were asked to describe what an elephant is like by touching it. Okay. So each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part. So that could be the side, the tusk, the leg, or the tail. Now, the first blind man touches the side of the elephant and he declares that the elephant must be a wall. Okay. The second feels the tusk and he says this is a spear. The third blind man, after feeling the trunk, swears it was a snake. The fourth feels the leg. He's like, well, I think this is a tree. And the last one touches the tail and he says, well, I think this is a rope. Now, afterward, when they compare notes, obviously they were in complete disagreement about what an elephant is. But the moral of the story is that humans have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on their limited and subjective experience as they ignore others' limited and subjective experiences, which also could be equally true, at least from their own experience. So this goes back to being relative. So this makes me think, where did we come from and how did we get these perspectives? How did we get these beliefs, right? So this is something to consider. Where did you get your belief that as we hit age 50, life falls apart and we're not useful anymore? Or where did you become the belief that you weren't good at math, or that you were never smart enough to do something, or that you were always going to be destined to be overweight or get diabetes? Or maybe you were always destined to have a heart attack because your dad and your brother and everybody else in your family did. I challenge you that your beliefs are stronger than your genetics. And there's some interesting research behind that. And it's called behavioral epigenetics. So it's an interesting new studies I just started diving into, but it really gets to the fact that our behaviors change how our genes are expressed. So now if you understand our genetics, we have the DNA capacity, I think, of 19,000 genes. But when they first started the Human Genome Project, they were forecasting that there must have been at least over 100,000 genes in order to explain the complexity of the human body, because there's so much going on. But when they found that our number of genes were equivalent to, much lower, what we would consider much lower organisms on the evolutionary tree, that was astonishing. So how did this happen? Well, it happens through things called epigenetics. Basically, our environment, which could also be the environment of our thoughts, right? The mind does affect the biology of our body. We know this when we're stressed. We see something that's stressful, our heart beats faster, we start to sweat. There's a signal going from our eyes seeing something or hearing something that sets us on alert, right? Things change. Well, there's lots of things that we need to consider about this. Positive outlook on life, different beliefs can lead to different outcomes on your physiology. And I think the counterclockwise study is a really interesting thought experience or thought experiment on what we could be doing in our own lives and in a very quick fashion. So I want to speak also to another experiment, and you may have heard of, is Pavlov's experiment, right? So now the Pavlov experiment is where dogs were conditioned to associate the sound of a bell with food, right? So eventually the dogs began to salivate at the sound of the bell alone, even when there was no food that was present. So this demonstrated how a new behavior, salivating at the sound, could be learned with association. So when we're children or we're babies, we're an empty slate, right? Although there is some interesting evidence about epigenetics affecting certain genes and how they can be expressed in future generations. More on that later. But right now, I want you to think about it in our experience when we're younger, right? Things that we probably don't remember, at least consciously. How did we associate certain behaviors with certain meanings or beliefs, right? So let's say you have a belief that money is evil and that people who are well off were just useless and not helpful to society because they're being greedy. But what if you have a different mindset that money is actually a tool that you can use to do well and do good in the world, right? And take care of people? What if you had the belief that you understood everyone around you is dealing with type 2 diabetes? And I've heard this excuse a million times, that people are saying, oh, well, I am going to get diabetes because, well, everybody in my family got type 2 diabetes. And so this leads them to believe that they are going to have this disease process. So guess what? If you believe it, that changes your thoughts, which changes your behaviors, which lead to different health outcomes. But what I've seen, which is really astonishing, if people are willing to suspend these beliefs that they have about their health, for example, type 2 diabetes. Let's say someone has type 2 diabetes. I also am very keen on understanding that people should not identify themselves with the disease, because every time you say, I am a diabetic, I am a hypertensive, I am this, I am that, you are really reinforcing the belief that this is who you are. So let's change the verbiage first. Let's change the language, right? Let's change it. So let's go from saying, I am a diabetic to I have type 2 diabetes. Now we've moved this into a certain condition, right? That we will absolutely have the power to change. So what happens is when people are willing to suspend the belief that they have a certain particular disease and give themselves an opportunity to change behavior. Sometimes the behaviors, right, will help them establish a new belief system. For example, you put a CGM on someone, right, and they are dealing with type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance, and they start to see how maybe they thought carbohydrates, including all plants, would make their blood sugars worse. Now, it might in the beginning, but over time, very quickly, things start changing. So their beliefs shift because they're experiencing a new reality. Their perspective is shifting and changing, right? So what they're seeing is saying, whoa, what I was believing was different. But what's nice about using technology or some kind of thing like a CGM, it's objective data. This is not subjective. It's not another person trying to tell you their beliefs, right? So literally, there's no wall to cause conflict, right? It's not, the CGM doesn't have a belief. The CGM doesn't say, you ate that pie, you ate this whatever, and this is why your blood sugars. And I told you you shouldn't be doing that. The body is just doing its thing. The CGM provides the data. That is the power of allowing yourself to change your beliefs and using tools to do that. So that's just one small experiment, and that I use all the time with patients, and it's phenomenal. So if you take the opportunity to change your beliefs, you will absolutely change your health. Now, this is not just a matter of, oh, positive thinking, this is going to happen. You have to change your fundamental belief. So that gets me to, how do you change beliefs? That would be my next question anyway. Well, there's a few things I've come up with here, and let me pull up my notes. Okay. So, changing your beliefs, particularly those that are deeply ingrained, can be quite challenging, right? So we know it's very achievable though, but we want to think about it as a combination of self-awareness, intentional action, and sometimes external assistance like the CGM, right? Or a coach or something like that. So here are a few steps. First of all, maybe identify and acknowledge your beliefs, right? So the first step in changing belief is to identify it, reflect on your beliefs. Don't judge yourself for them. It's just accept it that in the now, this moment in time, this is your current belief. These beliefs are not hard set. They're not like, I'm never changing. Now, some of them might be harder to change than others. But first of all, you just have to say, I am open. I am someone who can change my beliefs. That alone is probably the first belief you have to change, that you can change and you can see different things happen. So when you reflect on your beliefs, especially as it might be limiting or negative, acknowledge their presence and understand how they influence your behavior and mindset. I think next, what's really helpful is understanding the origin, right? So explore where your beliefs are coming from. Is this something that your parents believed, your grandparents believed? Often our beliefs are shaped by our past experiences, cultural background, family, education, social interactions. Understanding the origin can provide insights into why you hold these beliefs and how rational they are. And again, the key here is to stop and suspend the judgment. We don't want to judge ourselves for having certain beliefs, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Beliefs can change. All you have to do is change your perspective, widen your perspective, stop looking through life through a keyhole and open the door. Right. So next, you want to maybe challenge your beliefs. So question the validity and usefulness of your beliefs. Are they based on facts or assumptions? Assumptions that someone gave to you, someone taught you. Do they help or hinder you? So challenge your beliefs and require critical thinking, right? And sometimes confrontation can cause some uncomfortableness. But the key here is to turn into it and settle with it and accept those feelings. Think about, use your feelings and understand where they're coming from. This is going to require a little bit of insight. And this is going to require you to take time out of your day, which I find every morning with my walking, and allow yourself time for reflection and thinking about life and where you are and being present in the moment. Next, maybe seek some new information, right? So educate yourself on new information that challenges your existing beliefs. Like, guess what? Type 2 diabetes can be reversed. What do you know? That could involve reading, attending workshops, listening to expert opinions, or engaging in conversations with those who have different perspectives with an open mind. And if you still don't agree with them, that's okay, but you've learned something. Next, practice mindfulness and self-reflection, right? So mindfulness, being aware you are right now, being present, because really that's all we have is now. We don't know what we have tomorrow. We have a past, but the past is over. So, okay. But we do have right now. So mindfulness makes you aware of your thoughts and beliefs as they occur in the moment during the circumstance or whatever's happening. So self-reflection really allows you to kind of calmly assess your beliefs and consider how they align with your values and goals. You can use affirmations or visualization. Positive affirmations and visualization can help you reinforce a new kind of belief that's coming along. And if you start seeing yourself as healthy, you see yourself as strong, you say, I am strong, I am healthy. Doesn't matter if you have type 2 diabetes or you have what other chronic disease. No. This is, I am healthy, I am strong, I am loved, I am worthy, I am this. That really needs to be visualized in your mind. A really interesting story about this is there's a lady on Instagram that I followed, and she had spent the first 60 some odd years of her life dealing with type 1 diabetes that it ended up with a kidney and a pancreas transplant. She had cardiac health issues. She had been overweight. She was fatigued, multiple medications. And one day she had a shift that she was done and she was no longer going to be that person that led her to the place that she was. And what was interesting, she went on a vacation with her husband, and she said when she got back, they were reflecting and looking over the pictures. And she had spent about 7 or 8 months where she was really eating healthy, lifting weights, had changed her perspective of who she was as a person, her belief. When she looked at the pictures, she was really puzzled because the pictures that she saw did not reflect who she believed who she was. She said, the pictures that I saw were someone who was still overweight. It was someone who didn't look like the person I thought I looked like in the mirror every day. And that was the realization, was the power of her belief that made her transform. And if you look at her photos, it's incredible, from this person who could have killed other people, what she went through, to this strong, healthy, incredibly graceful human. And I don't even want to use the word aging because she's just existing, right? She's living in her present moment, and she's changed her current status by changing her belief on who she was, fundamental belief of who she was and what she was capable of. So next, I think it's really important to have behavioral experiments, right? So test new beliefs through actions. So if you want to adopt a belief that you're capable of public speaking, for example, start with small steps, right? Speaking up in meetings or join a public speaking groups, going live on your social media, speaking in front of your kiddos' classrooms, doing something. There's all sorts of things you can do. Cognitive behavioral techniques, right? So techniques from CBT therapy can be effective. So what this happens is they involve identifying and challenging negative thought patterns and then replacing them with more balanced and rational thoughts. Really interesting stuff with CBT, but I think ACT therapy is even more beneficial. So check it out. It's acceptance commitment therapy. And there's a book called A Liberated Mind by Stephen Hayes, and I've actually interviewed Dr. Hayes. So check that out if you're interested in that type of thing. Seek support, right? So sometimes changing deep-seated beliefs can be challenging to do alone, and seeking support from your therapist, coach, doctor who believes in you and believes you can change. Like, I know I believe in my patients can change. Sometimes I believe more than they do, but I've often been known to say, I can't want you to change more than you are, right? At the end of the day, you have to believe that you're capable of change. And that starts with changing your beliefs. It's such a fundamental thing. It's like this aha moment. Anyway, so be patient and persistent. You're not going to change overnight. It's going to creep back up these thoughts. But what's very important, as you start working to change certain beliefs, those little percolations of thoughts that come along and challenge you, right? They're saying, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. I'm changing you're not changing your beliefs because I want to be set and back in my old familiar belief system. That is not the way to have growth. That is not the way to have this incredible life that you want to live. The way you do that is you look at yourself in the mirror and honest, like, where do you want to be? And then you have to believe that you're capable of doing it. And I don't care what it is. It's a health status or capable of, getting a job or a relationship or whatever. And then once you believe those things are happening, amazing things happen. The world shifts because now you start seeing and doing things, seeing opportunities that were maybe there before, but until you had the belief that this experience or that particular opportunity was available to you and that would be very meaningful for you, you probably didn't even see it. It's kind of like, you go shopping for a different type of car, and you're looking at all these different cars, and suddenly you kind of set out yourself up on, let's say you're looking for a VW Bug, and suddenly VW Bugs are everywhere in the world. Like, who else is interested in VW Bugs? Why is everybody driving these VW Bugs? They weren't on the road before. Yes, they were, but now your mind, your perception, your thoughts, your looking, right, you're looking for something has shifted. So now your mind is paying attention to that particular thing. Same thing happens. You have a different belief. Your mind's attention goes there. Wherever your attention goes, it grows. I can't tell you how much this is so true. I'll share you one more story and then I'll let you guys go. Thank you for listening. If you've come this far, I hope this has been helpful. When I was in 6th grade, I wanted to be a cheerleader so bad, guys. It was so cool. Those girls in their skirts, and they were popular, and they got to rah, 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 and be part of the fun crowd. And man, I was extremely shy. My parents told me I was shy. I really believed I was shy, but I wanted to be a cheerleader more than I thought I was shy. So in 7th and 8th grade, it was a kid vote, popular vote. I tried out in 7th grade, failed. They didn't make it. I was like, all right, I'll try out in 8th grade. Tried out in 8th grade, failed again. But in 9th grade, I tried out again and I made it. And by the end of the year, what was interesting, I was like, okay, I don't want to try out again. It was fun. I had a great experience as a freshman cheerleader in high school. But what I knew at the end of the day, I learned that that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do with my time. And I think it begs the question, once you believe you can do it, that gives you the motivation to keep going. So many of us are seeking motivation in external, ways, but this intrinsic motivation is really, really key. One other story, real quick, and then I'll let you go. When I was in 9th grade or 8th grade, I was invited to a high school graduation of the high school of where I was going to be attending the following year. And I had parents who didn't necessarily, my stepdad didn't even finish high school. My mom had to drop out of her freshman year of college because she was pregnant with me as a teenager. And so, education was not valued in the sense, but I knew my education was important because that was how I was going to get the heck out of Dodge and live a different life. There were people in my life that spoke that breath of fresh air into my life. And that's a whole nother thing, conscious parenting. But anyway, so when we think about, I'm sitting here in 8th grade and I'm watching this graduation, and this person, one of the kids, only one of the kids got up and spoke. And it was so amazing that what this person was saying. And I said, who is that? And why do they get to speak and the others don't? They said, well, that's the valedictorian. I was like, what's a valedictorian? They're like, the person who gets the highest GPA of their class gets to speak. It's the honor they get to speak. And I was like, I'm going to be valedictorian of my high school graduating class. And I had said it in my head right there, just like I knew when I was 10 that I was going to be a doctor. And if you looked at my life circumstances, coming from the family that I did, they had lack of education, lack of finances, lack of anything. You would have said, no way, kid. There's no way you're going to do that. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I was going to do it. And I knew I was going to be valedictorian of my high school graduating class. And guess what? I was valedictorian of my high school graduating class. Now, there's no genetics on intelligence. There might be some tendencies, but intelligence is not a thing that can't change or improve. Curiosity, constant learning, changes your intelligence. And there's different types of intelligence. And I'm not saying, that some don't have it easier in school and others don't, because having raised 3 kids, one with severe dyslexia, I can guarantee you all 3 highly intelligent, all very different based on their learning skills and types. But anyway, I just wanted to share those things with you today because I think I felt so strongly about it as I was walking today, as I get my inspirations for these talks daily, that literally, guys, just change your belief and you can change your biology. You can change your health outcomes. You can change your life if you do the mental internal work about what you're allowing yourself to believe. And it is simple as that. And I think you think it may seem crazy, but it's absolutely true. I've seen it evident in my own life and so many others. People have written back to me after I've taken care of them. They've had dramatic health changes and shifts. And like, thank you, Dr. Marbus, for helping me. I was like, I didn't do anything. All I did was take the blinders off by speaking truth to you, saying, you can change. So like, I gave you hope. I said, no, you shifted your belief. There's nothing about giving hope, because at the end of the day, hope is just like, oh, maybe it'll happen. I just said this can happen, but you have to believe you can do it. And that, my friend, is the secret. That really is the secret. Now, is it everything? I don't know, maybe so. But I'd love to hear your comments. If you like this kind of stuff, please hit subscribe and share this with someone. And please let me know what you think, because I feel like this is amazing. So blessings, everyone. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your weekend, and go make next week a wonderful week. All right. Take care.